What would you say are the top 3 traits that you think any co-founder should have?
I'll be cliche and say trust first. I think startup is so built on trust. Was the first developer, was the first customer success, knock engineer, everyone. Second thing is I think there needs to be a really good division of responsibilities and trust within that. I think when it's unclear who's making decisions on certain parts, I think that will induce more fights and will essentially bring up trust issues again. What other traits in co-founders? I would say listener. I think we all need a certain level of charisma being co-founders. You're a leader. I believe in leadership through listening. Being a listener as a founder is like, it's not as important to say what you want as much as to listen to what others are saying and try to act upon that. So I think that's really important with founders because it allows you to make just smarter decisions.
Omri, I remember when we were first introduced to you, it was like I think it was 2020, right? It was like in the middle of COVID. And Tom from House was like, I have this amazing entrepreneur. He's this tech genius. He's one of the co-founders of Dynamic Yield, and maybe he'd be interested in joining you and Alex on your next idea. And Alex and I looked you up on LinkedIn. We were like, she can't be talking about the Omri that we think she's talking about. And then we realized it was the Omri, you. And we're like, there's no way he's even going to take a call with us. There's no way he's even going to entertain being our co-founder. Alex and I had to play extremely cool to woo you over. And look at us. We became co-founders and had a wild ride. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you and Alex about co-founder dynamics. What works? What doesn't work? What are the lessons we learned from this past journey together as a three co-founder team? But also, what are the lessons you learned from your Dynamic Yield days? And Alex and I can dive into what it was like in our Ivy days. Really, just recapping what makes the relationships with your co-founder really hard, but also really rewarding. So, are you ready?
I feel like you're going to make me blush a lot in this episode.
That's the only reason why we have you on, Omri, to boost your confidence.
Well, yeah, I definitely it's exciting to be here. I'm excited for this podcast and talking to the two of you, which I love so much. Yeah, it was crazy. It was like back end of 2020. I was a McDonald's employee, not flipping burgers, but working on tech there after the Dynamic Yield acquisition. And I was not entirely sure what I want to do next. I just knew that I felt like wanting to start something new. And then Tom told me, hey, you need to talk with Alex and Liz. They're amazing. They have an energy that is just intoxicating. And I think that the idea was that I was just going to give some tech advice and try to understand what's going on. And it was middle of lockdowns, and then talking to the two of you about a topic that is very close to my mind. I have 4 kids. We're talking about parenting. We're talking about helping parents. It got me really excited, and I saw a lot of potential in it, and it was. But it was weird, right? My previous experiences as a founder, and I think a lot of the stuff that I kind of grew up on is founders are usually people that are close to you, usually talk the same language, and you sit in an office or a garage, and if you go the garage gigs style, and you just you think about a problem and you scrap it until you make it, and it grows. And it's kind of the way that Dynamic Yield grew, in a sense, was this a lot of smart people in the room together. And now it's COVID, and I have one co-founder in Switzerland and one in New York, and how will that work? So I was very intrigued, and I think it became part of the challenge.
Right. You're so right. But I think a good place to start this whole conversation is actually, how does someone even find a co-founder? How how have we found our first co-founder. We just talked about how we found each other through mutual introduction. I'd love to know, where should people even look?
Yeah, so when in my first company in Dynamic Yield, the idea um, was I knew I wanted to start something. I knew I came from like a tech background, and I wanted something to, in a sense, fill in the gaps for me. Hopefully, something with more experience. And I think the first step there is like network. It's all about like people that you know, not being shy about contacting people and talking about ideas. And I wound up going to a lot of different meetups, which felt like a really productive way to get introduced to other founders. I went to incubators here in Israel. There are a few. But at the end of the day, what got me the connection to Liad, who I founded Dynamic Yield, was like a mutual friend who knew that I was looking. And this all goes back to like the network. Like you need people to know that you're looking to start something up. You're looking for a co-founder. So he was talking with Liad. Liad was an EIR investor back at the day, and he just made the connection. We met at a bar in Tel Aviv, and we found out going back home after the great meeting in the bar that we found out that we're in apartments right on the other sides of the street, and said like, this is good karma. We need to start this together. So not a Zoom meeting and actually neighbors, but I think the whole idea around networking and not being shy about to make everyone be aware that you're looking to start something up, and those connections just come up and I won't say jump at you, but like opportunity knocks.
And what about like how important is it to you just if someone who came to you with an idea and was like, I need to find a co-founder, but I've been like brainstorming this idea for a while. I want to bring on a co-founder, but I don't want it to be 50-50. I don't want it to be equal because I've already done some of the legwork for the past couple of months. Like, just talk me through how you think about that and the advice you would give a younger entrepreneur.
Oof. That's a tough question. So I'm like, actually, a lot of what I've been doing since Dynamic Yield, like I had a great exit. I became a little bit more known. So I'm talking to a lot of founders. I'm trying to push myself into, like putting time on the table to talk to young founders and try to help them in the different processes. So this question actually comes up a lot, especially around first hires, how much equity to give them, what kind of partnership to create. So, and also in my original partnership in Dynamic Yield, since part of the company, like at the beginning, was bootstrapped. So me and my co-founder were not like actually equal partners. And I think that the best thing that I have to say is like, if you can be equal, I think it's crucial for the decision-making process. I think it's crucial for the trust to like eliminate anything around like this guy's opinion is worth more than mine. And like even though like in Dynamic Yield, Liad was like had like more equity because he put on money when we started the company, I always felt like an equal partner for him. Like I think he never let me feel like my opinion is less important. And even though it was not equal in shares, it was equal in terms of our responsibility for the company. But that's not trivial. Like Liad is a seasoned entrepreneur, and I think that's not a trivial request. In a lot of the cases, if the partnership is not equal, then it's not going to be a simple thing for the other founder, like the founder with a majority stake, to give up on. And I think that with Clay, like being equal partners was the two of you. Like I think all of our characters would have made it through like any like distribution in a sense. But I think that being together on that equity front really helps. It really helps like to eliminate the financial part from the decision.
And by the way, we did bring on a fourth co-founder for a hot minute who was a minority co-founder, and that did not work out. So it was not because of the difference in stakes necessarily, but I do think there's something to be said about being equal with your co-founders from day one, having equal stakes. And like you said, it sounds like for it to not make a difference, you do need a little bit of know-how, a little bit of that seasonality and experience in order to have it not matter.
I think it's reasonable to have like if someone joins like after funding or after a later stage. I think it's 100% reasonable, and I think there's a lot in the naming. And if you remember, we had that conversation with her as well back in the day. But I think the word founder is crucial. I think in terms of the responsibility, and it's up to the team that you're working with. I don't think it means nothing. I think you can have like 5% of the company, but defined as a founder, and that would be substantial to how you see yourself making the decisions, in how decisions are being made, in how much you're involved in like the interaction with the board. I think the equities like is important when you liquidate, and it's important when you have like board seats and
Yeah.
but a good partnership, and I think a great indicator of the value of the partnerships is that even if the equity is not shared, the responsibility and value add that each one of the team members gives as a founder, like you care as a founder, you care about the people, you care about the product, you care about the success, you lose sleep on it as a founder. I think it means a lot, even if it's not fully backed by equal equity.
But what you're saying is like when you can, it's equal, right? Like if it's before fundraising, even if that person has been ideating on the ideas, been working on that idea for months, when possible, make the co-founder you bring on equal because it makes a difference.
It's just a happier path, right? Like we always say that like in a happy path, a lot of like you are supposed to tackle less problems in a sense. So that would create a happier path for the startup. You can succeed with a not as happy path, with non-equal, but it makes it easier, at least in the relationship side between the founders.
And it's not an easy ride. You want to make sure you're reducing any potential tension, any potential conflict that could come down the road, because you know that they will come. But walk me through a little bit more on how you met Liad, because we obviously all met in a very unusual context in the midst of COVID. We actually founded the company without meeting each other in person, at least not meeting you in person. Walk me through those steps after you sat down for that beer with Liad, and what happened next? Is it kind of like dating? Are you guys, did you not know how to follow up with him? Was it clear from that night that something was going to come out of it? Well, what came next?
So I think like the idea of meeting Liad was like it was just really good timing. I think a lot of the things, meeting you two was great timing. If I would have met you 2 months earlier, it probably wouldn't have happened.
It's like dating. It's really like dating. Yeah.
So I think it was a really good timing for the both of us, and we were excited by the idea that the guy that essentially the guy that introduced the two of us, his name is Ofer. He came up with like this idea. It doesn't matter, like we ended up doing something completely different, but he came up with this idea that got us excited. And the next day we started, we started drawing stuff up. Like it was like all like, let's get this domain. Let's start seeing this. The idea was, especially since we initially thought we'll be bootstrapping, we didn't know if we even need to raise money, because it was like a quick path to revenue at the beginning. So we really just we hit it off running. We had an office. He was an ER in Bessemer, so we used his office space. A lot of the bureaucracy around this was not
taken
even
care of,
considered. Yeah, and it was and we drew up like a founders agreement with the guy that was Ofer and his partner Ohad, and we just started running. And I had my limitations. I needed to get a paycheck. They put in some money to bootstrap the company. The idea that we're doing this, we're running. I felt on my end that it's obviously there's a lot of risk, but I am getting some salary, and I'm learning the ropes and trying something with people that are obviously talented. And I had a lot of respect. I didn't even do any background checks. I don't know. I think you two sent me to talk with Rui, and I obviously asked a lot about you with Tom. But I don't think I even did too much background check when I was starting to work with Liad. Something in that energy just felt right. And it was a leap of faith. So it was not a crazy leap of faith, like working with the two of you remote during COVID and starting a company without even meeting in person. I remember the first time meeting you in person in New York. It was like,
Yeah.
hey, Alex is really tall, but
People never know how tall I am until they meet me in person. Newsflash,
um,
everyone. I'm 5'11". Now you know.
but I think a lot what during my so I was younger then. Still am young in heart now, but not as much in
You're
age.
still young.
Was I'm going to be 45 this year, and I think I've learned a lot about people. I think that what was always like one of my stronger traits is be able to be a good judge of people and character. Um, and so I trust my instincts on this. And like if I had to give an advice to those founders out there, a founder relationship is a lot around the personal relationship. It's literally a marriage. Like it's not as binding, but it has a lot of the complexities and the
Right.
need between the partners, and like being there for like in the hard times for each other and celebrating together. You need that person to be someone you'd be happy to celebrate with, and you'd be willing to sacrifice stuff for. And I think you should trust your instincts, and those are the most important one, more than references. Like, do some background checks, be smarter than me on some of the stuff, but I knock on wood, I didn't fail yet on those, but I've heard stories.
Meeting Liad in this context of, sharing the same network, you had people that you know in common. So did the three of us when we met. So how important is it to meet someone within your network that you can easily vouch? We always talk about the importance of speed. And once you have an idea, let's go try things. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did. And so much of that was possible because you hit it off straight away. It was almost like love at first sight. And were able to get the ball moving so quickly.
So I think there's a lot of privileges of building companies between the years of 2010 to 2022 that are currently harder, honestly. I think with Liad, it was clear we'd be able to raise money relatively easily because he was like a returning entrepreneur and good relationships and stuff. So I think it was like we're able to move fast because we knew a lot of the other pieces will fall into place. And with you two, like it was like we raised money, 2021 during COVID. Money was in the streets, and we were all returning founders after successful exits. I think the harsh reality in 2022 and like the last 2 years, which have been obviously hard, is that you need to do a lot more testing and work before you're actually able to raise funds, and which is good. Like it's better for companies to work this way. It's just a little bit of a different energy. I talk to founders almost on a day to like every day. I talk to founders, and I see a lot of excitement by their work. They're having a hard time, but I think the whole thing with the AI now and the ability to move fast on ideas is kind of making up for stuff that we had to work harder back then. It was harder to get like a demo up or an MVP up, and now it's so much
Right.
easier. So I'm not feeling entirely sorry for people starting companies today. I'm just saying that in terms of how as the partnership formulates and you're able to move fast, I think that's a crucial point that you need to create. And it's also a great judgment of how the team works. I think the beginning is it's like a honeymoon phase. Everyone loves everyone. If you have also money, like because you raise money, it's great, and like you're not worried about like what's going to happen tomorrow and who are going to have to fire. But I think that it's a really important time in order to build that relationship, build that trust. When everything is happy and everyone's still excited, this is exactly where you want to, gain the trust from each other. So I think with Liad is a very strong technical guy, but like between us, like it was clear that I'm doing everything tech, he was doing everything business and sales and product, and once we've built that kind of relationship at the early days, he trusted me so much on everything that we're doing. It was like really something that helped us work hand in hand for the next like 7 to 10 years. that we've been at the company together. And I think with you also, like, I think you trusted me so much on leading the product and tech in Clay, and it really helped us. Everyone knows what they're doing. We're working in tandem. We're not stepping on each other's feet. It just created a much better like interface and ability to move forward.
It's funny, while you when you guys are talking about like how easy it was, like how with Liad you just had that instinct, and when we all met, even though we never met, but virtually it just felt easy. Not naming who it is, but when we did bring on that other additional co-founder for that hot minute, what I was reflecting on is, the conversations flowed, but then the minute when we started to talk about negotiate what that co-founder relationship would look like, it was very difficult. Like that should have been our red flag. Like, okay, if in our honeymoon phase, just negotiating what this co-founder position is, what that reflects, and that should have been our red flag. Like that is my lesson that I'm taking from that process. It's just, you kind of know when it's working, and if the discussions around what does a co-founder dynamic look like, who's getting what, and if that becomes challenging, I think that is kind of the flag to like, this is not the
Yeah, and more than that, I think another important takeaway is not to get, seduced by a certain degree or a certain title. I think a lot of the mistakes I hear in co-founder dynamic is people teaming up with someone who has, this big resume, but there's no relationship, there's no dynamic. And I think so much of our success, three of us, is the love that we have for each other and the synergies, and just everything was always flowing. And I think, like you said, so much comes from the gut, Omri, and so much of the successes that you've had and that we've had in co-founder relationship came from just really loving our co-founders.
Yeah, so how, like, it's a good question, right? Like, how do you end, like, we got into disagreements, right? Like any co-founder, like co-founders get into disagreements.
You should get into disagreements.
Yes. But like that, yeah, I'd be curious to hear from you, Omri, when you advise other founders around those tricky conversations, and when you are at a crossroads, right? It might not see eye to eye with your co-founder. Like, what are those lessons you've taken, whether good ones or bad ones, from both the relationship with us as well as with Liad at Dynamic Yield? And be honest, don't lie. We can handle the truth. I can't.
And we know when you lie.
I'll start, and this is being recorded. Like, Lee's always right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll stop lying. So I think, I think like arguments between founders is a very, like, it's a very important process in the way the company evolves. Okay, I think like everyone like having the same opinion or not arguing about anything, or one founder saying that no matter, like, he's the CEO, he can decide. I don't really care. Well, like I don't want to be accountable. I think one of the key aspects that I think are part of the founder role is the accountability. Like the fact that you, like, whatever is being decided as a group of founders, you're accountable to it just as much as the CEO is. And I think part of the, like, sometimes part of the disagreements is not even like a core disagreement, but more of like a helping the, like, one side help it, you like sell the idea to the other sides. Like, you want to be able to treat this as your own decision. So if you decide to, I don't know, like, let go the entire team because we need to save money, but then that would hurt growth, and maybe I want to try harder. So like, you want to keep on challenging each other, like a startup, especially within the founder ecosystem. And I think when the startup grows and you have other like key stakeholders, like a VP customer success and sales, and they all need to be like kind of included in this decision process. And you want to hire an executive team that will challenge you, and not one that will be like say yes to anything that you bring.
Right.
But, and that's a big but, it needs to be done with respect and trust. And I've worked with a lot of super like talented people that just didn't know how to fight. They would either storm out of the room and shut the door, or yell at other people, or be disrespectful. And not just like, it was like part of their character. They didn't have like the fine, I guess, emotional intelligence to handle like those fights in a certain way. Like sometimes even like Lee and I, so like a disclaimer, like Lee and I fought a lot around a lot of different things. And sometimes it really pissed Alex's off. But I think one of the things that I always look back at my arguments with Lee is like, it was always like, it was not because we were looking for a fight. It was like the goal was to get to a decision. Like, it was always with the product and our customers in mind. And the passion is not a passion for fighting or ego. It's a passion for what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build. And I respect that. And I will never be angry with someone who fights with me over something that they care about. And honestly, and I think it's really important. And Lee's always right. Yeah,
And Lee's always right. You guys never forget that.
But I also think we always fought with respect and love for each other. And sorry, I lost you guys via audio for a little bit, but like, I think that was also very key to our disagreements, Omri, and why we could still love each other. Like, when we'd get really heated and yell at each other and say things you probably didn't want to say, would always call each other back like 5 minutes later and be like, Omri, I love you. Like, Omri, don't hate me. Or you'd be like, Lee, I would love you. And I think it's because we'd always never cross like this line that you couldn't come back from. And when people ask me about like, how have you worked with Alex for so many years, I often say that like, even when we really get angry at each other, there's this line that we don't cross. And in a sense, it's kind of like being married, right? Like, you get angry at your spouse, but there's a line that you just don't cross because you respect them. And I think that's like, when I think about our disagreements and our really like big disagreements, would always be able to pick up the phone and call each other a few minutes afterward.
And I think it just is a testament to how much we all care about the company. At the end of the day, like you said, Omri, the reason for the argument to begin with is because we're so passionate and we're all so determined on making it successful. And this is what brings up all these opinions. So in a way, it's a way for everyone to get aligned, make sure that you're on the same page and that you want the best for the business.
Yeah, and I think that if I had to take like a note for, like founders who are trying to manage through, so if there's a lot of fighting and you feel like it's becoming more fighting, this is where you can definitely use external help. And, I think one of the things that I've done, successfully in the past is like trying to involve more people in the discussion, but not necessarily people from within the company. So I always tell that all my success is attributed to my wife. So my wife, Michelle, like she's the best. And I found myself like in a lot of times, when I'm having like this crazy arguments with Lee or with Liad or with other people in the company.
I love it. It's not this massive argument with Alex.
I don't remember having a massive argument with Alex.
Okay, you have a short memory,
but sometimes, no, we had a few. But I think, but the real passionate ones were with Lee. But I think like having that person that helps you, like calm you down, walk you through the process, take Lee's side, and try to convince you in different terms. But I think being able to also not be shy about your disagreements and talk with people that you trust in order to help you, I think that's also important. At the end of the day, like if you fight all the time, that's not healthy. There's something usually that's deeper. I don't we're laughing about this now. Most of the time we were not fighting, and I don't want the podcast listeners to feel like, hey, I'm really where they were like fighting each other every day. No, but there were a few.
Most
there were
of like,
every now
a few epic ones.
A few epic ones, but I think being able to lean on someone is really important. If you're a triplet of founders like that could be great. I remember having conversations with Alex after those, like some of those calls, and I'm sure Lee had those with Alex as well, like Omri driving me insane. But I think don't be shy asking for help and trying to help you mitigate. Like, this relationship is so important. It's so important not to lose the
Right.
trust, not to lose the love. And sometimes when you fight too much, that can happen. So
Question on that though, like the trio.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you ever recommend to founders whether like being a solo entrepreneur, being a duo, or being a trio? Has it like? I mean, I'd just be curious. Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I've done duo and trio. Those both worked well. I think in like both cases have obviously have their upsides and downsides. I think the benefits of a trio is the ability to have this, like, whenever there are like serious arguments, to have someone that mitigates and someone that helps, or someone becomes the voice of reason within the process. So I think that definitely helps. I think solo entrepreneurship is extremely difficult. I think you need so much help and so much, like, you have anxiety attacks. You have like you
Yeah,
like,
oh my God.
It's honestly, it's just like people don't really honestly appreciate all the way how hard entrepreneurship is, and how much you bring back home, and what it does to your mental health. So I think sharing that load with more people is crucial. So
Totally.
I will bow down to any solo entrepreneur, but really suggest anyone to get a partner. Because like, as a team, you'll most likely just work better. You'd be able to lean on each other in a better way, and that will help dramatically. With three, like, you always have like the fear of like two. So I had like,
Two
this
gets
didn't
one.
happen with us, but I have a friend who joined as an entrepreneur, like this two other co-founders, which were really good friends, which felt like really similar to our story. And I was like telling him, hey, yeah, it worked great for me. And it ended up really bad for him. Like, they totally ganged up on him. They
Oh
talked
my
behind his
gosh.
back. And
Yeah.
he ended up being like coming out really wounded from that relationship. So
Wow.
especially if you're teaming up with a duo as a third co-founder, you need to be able to create and trust the fact that they're your partners and not you're their partner of their duo. So I would recommend that when joining as an entrepreneur, an existing like couple. Yeah.
That makes sense. And now that you've had so much experience with different types of co-founder dynamics, what would you say are the top 3 traits that you think any co-founder should have?
I'll be cliche and say trust first. But I would say this for almost every position in a startup. I think startup is so built on trust. With the first developer, with the first customer success, knock engineer, everyone. I think the reason why I interviewed every new Dynamic Yield employee until we were over 150 people is, I think a lot of the sentiment that Liad and I try to push in our company is the trust in the connection. And we want to be able to trust each and every one of the people that we hire, that they'll be true to our mission and like would fit like what we want as a culture. And I think that like that goes without saying that that's the most important thing for co-founders. You need to trust your co-founder. Second thing is, I think there needs to be a really good division of responsibilities and trust within that. So I think when it's unclear who's making decisions on certain parts, I think that will induce more fights and will essentially bring up trust issues again. Like, I trust I trust Alex to have the best marketing decision making for Clay. I trust Liad to be the best salesperson I've ever met. There's like this trust and this division of responsibilities makes it like I don't need to mind myself too much with how that's being done, because I trust my co-founder, and on the other way around, I think that I enjoyed full trust from like everyone in Dynamic Yield and with Liad and with the two of you on making the good decisions on the technical front on how we do stuff, and just let us operate really efficiently. So division of controls and trust within that. What other traits in co-founders?
One last one.
I would say listener. I think we all need a certain level of charisma being co-founders. Like we're leaders. Like we're like, we want to, like with Clay, we got like 15 people. With Dynamic Yield, they got to like 300. You're a leader. You need to be able to lead a company. I believe in leadership through listening. And I think being a listener as a founder is like not like, it's not as important to say what you want as much as to listen to what others are saying and try to act upon that. So I think that's really important with founders, because it allows you to make just smarter decisions. And a lot of us are not doing that as an instinct.
And are there any specific exercises that you would run with a potential co-founder match to see if, like, beyond that instinct, but to just see, like, is this the right person?
I don't know. I think nothing, like I've not interviewed co-founders as the goal of being a co-founder. Even the first conversation with you, it was not in the instinct of being a founder. It was like, this is like a conversation dynamics. This is like, you try to read a person. Like you don't, like I've been talking with, so like I've been doing a lot of ideation process with people, like entrepreneurs talking to me, like they, like the same way that I did with you really early on, just talking about ideas. You kind of see how this person talks and how much he listens to you, how much he lets you say. I think those are all like really subtle things that you need to pay attention to when you're having that conversation, and that will really help you understand how that relationship is going to be going forward. I think when you're thinking about what kind of interactions you will have, like you will have on hiring people, on making, like it's going to be around a lot around decision making. How does that person listen to you? Like how like I think it all goes back to this, like this listening thing. You want someone that not only talks but also listens to you, and someone that you will be willing to follow. I think that even if one is the CEO and one is the CTO, and us CTOs are usually a little bit more on the quiet side and less on the salesy side, I think there's something in that relationship that you want to build, is that the CEO can follow the CTO, and the CTO talks about tech and excitement about what they're building. Like the tech person needs to feel like the CEO is like, he wants it, he listens it, he understands, he respects it. So I think those are all like little things that you need to pay attention to when you're talking with your co-founder.
And what about when you and your co-founder, like you made them your co-founder, equal co-founder, and you have a very big decision to make and you don't see eye to eye on it, that you're at odds? Is there an exercise, like how do you get to a point where a decision can be made?
I think at the end of the day, the company has a CEO, and that CEO needs to, like, he calls the final shot. And I think that you need to respect that as a team. Even if you're like a duo, an equal duo, or trio, or like 7 founders, at the end of the day, you're trying to make the best decision for the company, and it's like the CEO's decision. And I think it's important to have that stated. Even if you're equal founders, the CEO makes the final decision. And you need to choose your battles. Like you need to like decide what is like a red line. Where do you pull off all the stops? And like I was never in a place where I need to threaten, like either we do this or I just leave the company. Like this never happened to me. Hope I'm never at that situation, but that can happen. Like, like we're in weird times in Israel these days, and like everyone's trying to define their red lines, or when till when am I fighting? So right now we're all fighting. We want this to succeed, and we want the state to keep on flourishing. And those red lines are important. Like, it's important to decide them and to talk about them, and to talk about them as a team. Like, as a team, when you're building the company and you're making those decisions, it's entirely legitimate to talk about what are the red lines. Like, I can say that in dynamic yield, I said I want to do good. Like, I don't want to do like bad things. I don't want to do I don't know, like pharmaceutical or poker or the 3Ps. There's like, everyone has their own limitations on what they're willing or not willing to do. And I can, like, if Dynamic Yield as a company would have decided to do personalization for porn, I would probably say bye. And I'm not, like, it could be a CEO's decision, but I'm not going to do it. And that's perfectly fine. And like, not saying that it's not legitimate, and someone probably does it and makes billions, but not me. And in the same way, like, if Clay, like, I'll go to the extreme. Let's say in Clay, we decide to sell our parents' data for in order to make a buck. Like, there's a lot of money in advertising to parents. Let's sell this data. I would have stood on my back feet and said, no way, and I'm not going to build this, and it's not going to happen. But I was smart enough to found the company with two co-founders that were in the same mindset, and those are exactly the thing that you talk about when you found a company. So I think it's important to set those borders and guidelines at the beginning, especially since the company keeps on changing. It's important to understand that when building a company, you start with a certain idea, and it goes to a lot of different directions before it lands on something that actually works. But putting on those guidelines when you found the company is important, and fight for what you want, and try not to reach the point where you need to step and say, I'm not going to do this.
No.
Those things probably should be halted way before it becomes to just like do or die decision.
Great.
So tell us how having a co-founder relationship is different than having a life partner, a wife or a husband. For real. What have you learned? Like, where are there similarities and where is it different?
It's different in a lot of ways. But there are no kids. But
that's true.
So I think that I think a successful relationship between founders can happen even if there's no like real emotional connection or like 100% trust, or like I know founders that are not good friends. They're like they're work partners. They won't talk after work. They like have a separation, and I think that's fine and it can work. And I think a lot of good companies can succeed with that, and especially after a lot of years that you've been together, like it becomes harder. Like, people change, people grow. The job changes. Like, when you start a company and you're just like, hey, we're playing around and we're building cool stuff, and then you become like a manager of hundreds of people, you change, and that's perfectly fine. In a couple, it's different. It always needs to be close. It always needs to work. You always need to work hard to maintain that like emotional connection. And it's and there's also a lot more in stake, at least for me. I think that even when you look at like companies where the founders ended up leaving. Okay, I know this company. One of the founders left because of whatever. The company kept on working. Like there's still like there's a lot
happens.
that was already built. It happens sometimes. It's like it's too much for someone. It's like it's not with a relationship. You don't have that privilege, and so you work harder to make things work. I don't know if that all makes sense. I always see it like as my relationship is always like I always see it as very unique, was the respect and love I have for my wife and how I depend on her. And I always look at, as much as I value the co-founder relationship and work stuff, it's a different thing. It's a different level.
Yeah. I mean, Michelle's amazing. Michelle, if you're listening, we are so impressed that you put up with Omri. But really, you are amazing.
I mean, I think how incredible were all of our partners, right? I think that's another thing, that probably a whole other episode that we could do on this. But I think the fact that we all had very solid relationships, both at home and at work, definitely also helped the company.
Yeah, we should do a podcast episode just about our spouses. So,
oh my God, yes, we should feature them on here.
Celebrate Johnny, Zach, and Michelle.
I'm going to have FOMO, Omri, when you start your next thing with your new co-founder. I'm going to have to kill them. I'm very possessive over you. I'm nope, no one else will get Omri. No one gets Omri. I'm going to be, if you guys are watching Netflix right now, there's the worst,
He's taken, okay?
yeah, no one's taking Omri. We are the last co-founders you will ever have. So just know that fact. And that's just the end of the story. So thank you, Omri, for coming on here. We love you, and we'll talk to you probably in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I was honored to be on the show, and I hope I got some good information for other founders. And if you want more information, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm trying to answer and help whoever reaches out.
So nice. Such a nice guy.
He's such a good guy. See, that's why
such
we
a good
you,
guy.
Omri. You're just
I know.
out of all these men on the planet, you're just such a good person. So
such a good person.
For our listeners, pick good people. I don't know why we picked Lee, but it's another story.